What's up, my fellow actors? Kurt Yu here from actingcareercenter.com. I got another great interview for you today. I'll be talking to fellow actor and YouTuber Kristen Henry King. Kristen's been a working actress in Los Angeles for over 10 years. You've seen her in shows like Jane the Virgin, Station 19, NCIS, Community, one of my favorite shows of all time, and many others. And as a YouTuber, Kristen shares a lot of great information and advice for actors. I highly recommend you subscribe to her channel as well. I'll put a link to it right up there. In fact, in her latest video, Kristen interviews me. So if you want to watch that interview, you got to head over to her channel and watch it. And in this video, I interview Kristen. She talks about how she got her start in New York and then eventually moved to LA to pursue her career there. We also talk about our YouTube channels and then how we got started and what we like about making YouTube videos. Plus, Kristen shares a huge secret about her acting career. I'm super honored that she decided to choose this interview to reveal this big secret to the world. So without any further ado, here's my interview with Kristen Henry King. Kristen, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's great to meet you on via Zoom. So you
Totally. It's totally something I've been wanting to do for a really long time, so I'm glad we linked up.
Yeah, this is great. So you're an actress in Los Angeles, and I am an actor in Atlanta, and I've never worked in Los Angeles before. So this is something that's really cool because I would really love to hear what the experience is like, and maybe kind of share what the pros and cons are, and the differences and similarities between our markets. And so the first thing I'd love to just hear is how you got to LA, because you weren't born and raised in LA, right? So I think you moved there. So I'd love to hear kind of your acting journey of what ended up bringing you to LA.
Well, actually, I lived in New York City and I was doing a lot of like off Broadway and the whole equity route, but I realized that was never really my thing. Like I wanted to do live entertainment. I do love musical theater, but I just couldn't see myself doing 8 shows a week while also having a family, while also like in between Broadway shows, having to like wait tables or do something else. Like in my 20s, all I could think about was like, how can I be on the stage right now? Yeah. And also, to be fully honest, I was going through kind of like a messy breakup, and the only way I could really like fully disconnect is by moving 3,000 miles away. So I was like, all right, I'm gonna go. This is too painful for me. So I went.
Everybody's got a different story of how they got there.
I know, it was crazy. So when I went to LA, actually from New York City, I sent out like a ton. I looked up every agent. I didn't look up what they did. Every agent in New York, I just kind of like, or LA, I just put stickers and then the same postcard and the same headshot. And I just like sent it. And then only one person responded. And I remember I sent out 80 agent things.
Wow.
And one person responded, and when I got there, they signed me, and obviously I was like, great, because in New York I had 3 agents, and then a lot of people were like, are you crazy? Like, you have no one, you know no one, you have agents here, don't go moving, and you don't even know. And I had no friends, so I was just like, off to LA. And it took me a minute because that agency didn't really do much for me. Mm. And then I like hung out with the wrong crowd, and like I just kind of got dispersed a little bit until finally I was able to get into The Bold and the Beautiful. I got that by myself without an agent.
Oh, wow.
And that I used, and a commercial, and I used that to get a better agent. And from there, it just kind of worked. And I believe that was in 2010 is when I had my first on-camera role.
And how long had you been in LA by that point?
I had been in LA. I moved to LA in 2007. So it was a minute.
Yeah.
It was a minute.
Yeah. So since you mentioned that, I know that's something that a lot of people want to know is, all right, so if they don't have an agent, how can they get opportunities themselves? So I'm interested to hear how you got onto The Bold and the Beautiful without an agent, or by yourself, because you had an agent, right? But you got that role by yourself, you said.
Yeah, I had an agent and then it just didn't work out. So I was like, what's the point of having an agent if I'm not going out anyway? So I just ended off with her. And then I picked up another agent that was similar. And then I was like, no, I can't do that. And then I went to a casting workshop. And a year later, Christy Dooley remembered me and she called me in. And I was just the perfect role for this at the time. And the fact that she remembered me after a year was pretty amazing. And then from there, and it was a good role. So then I had that role and I was now AFTRA, if you want to say. Because AFTRA at the time was super easy to get into. You didn't have to like get invited. So you just pay and then you get it and then you can put it on your headshot. But there was that weird time where AFTRA and SAG weren't joined yet. So anyone who was in AFTRA that had already paid would automatically become SAG and they didn't have to like get invited. So it's just like, they paid $1,500 and they're in SAG. Whereas like I also had to pay like another $2,000 or $2,100 to get into SAG. It was crazy. It was speaking of SAG, like is SAG cheaper in Atlanta, like to get in?
Yes, it is. But eventually, like if you want to work nationally, eventually you still have to pay the full amount. But yes, if you were just gonna join here locally, it's I believe 1,400 or 1,450, something like that. But then once if I were to book something in LA, I'd have to first pay the difference before I could work out there.
Oh, cool. Yeah. Good to know.
Yeah, but if they join here, they can work on the SAG projects here. That no, we can get more into the details because it is a right to work state in Georgia and for most of the Southeast. So you are not forced to join ever. So yeah.
Wow, that's good.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So
I answered your question, right? Yes, that's how I got involved in LA, in acting in LA.
Yeah, and that's how you kind of got your start. So, what are some of did you see any differences, like big differences in terms of, because you were still pursuing acting in New York as well. So I don't really know much about the New York market either. So when you went to LA, what were some of the big differences that you saw?
Well, I had been in New York for already 6 years and I was still like, I wasn't close to getting equity yet. And it took me just in extra work, it took me 7 months to become SAG. So it was easier to become SAG than it was to become equity. So I felt like, and also LA, you can sneak in through commercials because there's just more commercial work there than in New York. I did shoot commercials in New York, but they were never to the point where like you could make 100,000 a year. Like I never had that in New York. Whereas LA,
they were all non-union in New York.
Yeah, because I wasn't in the union in New York, right? So I had done a lot of non-union commercials, and I just was never. I don't think I ever made more than 5,000 on a project, on anything that I was submitted for. And I had 3 different agents. I had a theatrical agent, I had a commercial agent, I had a modeling agency, and I had no managers. And also in New York, you can have as many agents as you want. Whereas in LA, if you have one agent, that's it. Like you cannot, like you can't, I'm sorry, those 3 agents in New York covered me across the board on all of them, right? So it wasn't really theatrical, commercial, model. It was like they all had their own clientele, you know?
That's interesting.
Whereas like in LA, basically you can only have one agent per county. So like you go to San Diego and you can get a commercial agent, but like you couldn't have more than one commercial agent in LA. And then so you can have different agents in all the other ones. Whereas like for modeling agencies, each modeling agency has like their own clientele, so it's okay if you have more than one modeling agency.
Is it really important to get into the union to get auditions when you're in LA? Like I know, because you can get
yes.
Theatrically.
Theatrically, yes, but commercially, it's been said that agents will say, hold off on joining the union for as long as you can with commercials. But for me, I had spent so much time trying to become SAG. I never wanted to continue doing background work. It was just something that was eating at me.
Right.
eating me alive. Like I just couldn't. It was hard for me to watch what other people were doing that I wanted to do.
Right.
And I'm making $60 a day.
Right.
Like at the time, it was $60 a day.
Right.
And I was just like, I would literally cry over it. Like, when am I going to become SAG? And so when I got my invitation, I signed it right away. I didn't care if there was less non-union work. I didn't care, because in my mind, if I was ever going to be a movie star or ever going to like be a theatrical person, they're union. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not here to be a commercial actor for the rest of my life. I'm here to do what I wanted to do, which was like create art, duplicate humanity, like tell stories. Like that's what I want to do. But I'm not going to knock it, because commercial has made me lots of money. And I would not be able to have what I have if I didn't have commercials. But it's not something that I want to do for the rest of my life. Maybe when I'm famous, I can be like on set and make $1 million for the day, you know?
Be like Sam Jackson and just start making all those credit card commercials all the time.
Yeah. I'm like, then I'll happily do it.
Yeah. That's great. Because that's really interesting to me, because I've always wondered, because I knew a lot of LA actors always talking about trying to like get in the union. And so what you're saying is there is kind of the casting directors for movies and shows, are they bringing in union actors first when they're auditioning people? Because I know, like, you can get Taft-Hartley, right? You can be a non-union actor and get Taft-Hartley and work on a union show without joining yet. Legally, like, there's nothing wrong with it. But is it because there's like a roadblock in terms of casting?
Yeah, I mean, I've personally never seen it where a casting director would willingly call in a non-union person if there's someone who already looks like them that's in the union. Because, okay, listen, so if you're a co-star, you're making $1,000 for the day. Whereas commercial, the ad agencies are throwing money. What's another $3,000 to Taft-Hartley someone? Whereas like if you're on set for one day and you're saying one line, why would they bring in a non-union person? It's just business sense. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah. As I never thought about that too much, because I've always, here in Atlanta, it's because it's a right to work state, you know, a lot of the actors, I don't know what the numbers are, but a lot of the actors, even working actors who are consistently working on movies and shows, they're still non-union, because
It's true.
Yeah, because
that's true.
Not...
I met a guy in Austin who was a series regular on The Have and the Have-Nots, and he still wasn't union. Wow, and I was like, what?
I didn't know any series regulars that weren't, but yeah.
Like,
so now you've been in LA for a number of years, and you've worked there for a number of years, and you've also seen other markets such as Atlanta, where I live, continue to grow. Are you seeing, as an LA actor, are you seeing production move? Like, have you seen like the amount of opportunities shrink in LA because of other markets growing, or is it just like markets are growing and opportunities are just, there are more opportunities now for everyone?
Well, I think that this is the golden time for actors anyway, because everything is streaming. And I feel like there's a need for actors. And which is why I have a secret. I moved to Atlanta.
You moved to Atlanta?
I moved to Atlanta. I actually moved about 3 weeks ago. And the 31st,
so you're
to be exact, of December.
Fresh here.
Thank you. Yeah. So I think that this is something that, it's a really good question, because there is a lot going on in LA, but I am actually on hold for a series regular in Atlanta. And yeah.
Incredible.
So what will become of it? I don't know, because holds, avails, you never know what happens. But I figured, you know, I just came here and I fell in love with the town. And something my husband and me have always wanted, like once we had kids, it was very different lifestyle in LA. than it is here. And now we understand why our parents were living in the suburbs. Like my husband's from Oregon. He went kayaking and they'd go like on hiking trails and things like that. And I'm from the South. I got a car when I was 16 so I could drive myself to school because everything was so far and it was easier for my parents. Like, and all of that, we're like, we want that for our kids. And my kids didn't have a backyard. Our house was, it was worth over 800,000 and we weren't living in the nicest neighborhood. And you're just like, wow. Like, and so when I came here, I was just looking at the area, whatever, like seeing like, could I live here? Could I not live here? And then we found a house. It has a backyard, have a view of the lake. Like it's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
And I was like, I want this house. I told myself like, I want this house. And when I got back to LA, my manager called me and she's like, are you ready for this? And I'm like, what? And I thought for sure she was going to say that I was like one of my recurring roles had turned into a series regular or something in LA. And she was like, you're on hold for this show and shooting in Atlanta. And I was like, what? And so it's just kind of like if you build it, it will come moment for me.
Yeah.
That even if I don't get this, maybe they let me go. It gave me a feeling that it's going to be okay if I move my whole life to fit like what you were saying when I was interviewing you move to fit your lifestyle. And the lifestyle we wanted for our kids was really important, especially during the pandemic. It was very easy to see. And the year before I had this, like, I was like, I want my kids to have a certain type of life. And then they can go off and live in New York or live in LA when they're ready. But I want to give them the childhood that I want them to be able to ride their bike around the neighborhood and like, bye, I'll see you later. Come back when it's dark. Like, I wanted that for them.
Right.
So, So do I think opportunity is totally in Atlanta, to answer your question. I think there's opportunity here now. And my agents gave me permission. And that was something that was I was so scared. Like I was so scared. I called my manager first and I was like, so just so you know, I've been telling her since last year. I was like, I've been looking at Atlanta, just going for, for my kids and all this stuff. She's like, I wouldn't go yet, blah, blah, blah. And then once the pandemic happened, she was like, go, just go. Because now I was able to not have to be in a room. I could do live Zoom auditions, and it just made it easier for me to cut the ties. And I called my manager and I was like, can you tell my agent? Because I was so worried my agent was going to drop me. Like, I thought she was going to be like, no. And my agent surprisingly took it really well. And she was just like, it's okay. She can live anywhere.
Yeah.
And we'll still send her stuff. So, it's great. I get to keep my LA reps and live in Atlanta.
That's awesome. Well, first, congratulations on, that series regular. Let's hope, fingers crossed with all of that.
Fingers crossed.
And also welcome to Atlanta. That's amazing that you're here. And I think if we tie everything back to what we talked about on when you interviewed me, right? I think part of it is also timing. Like timing just it works out so well sometimes because maybe if something like this may have happened 3 or 4 years ago, like it just doesn't, like maybe at that point your reps would have been like, what? Are you kidding me? But at this moment, like when you had asked me about like the size of the roles and what people are booking out here, because local Atlanta actors have been growing and growing, getting the bigger roles, LA reps, West Coast reps are starting to take notice. And I know many people here that have had LA reps reach out to them and say, hey, we're seeing you on these shows doing whatever and whatever. Do you want reps in LA? Like that was unheard of, right, a few years ago. So now I think, with the timing, you coming out here at this moment, the reps in LA, a lot of them, yours included, like they're a lot more open to having someone living here now and still repping them for the West Coast.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's like such a blessing. Like it literally couldn't be better.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, I
That's
feel
awesome.
good. I feel good and I feel happy here. I now actually have a space to have an actual studio,
Yeah.
and I don't have to like tell my mom when she comes visit, be like, can you stay in the living room while I just shoot this self-tape real quick, and then like put up all the lighting, and then and then
Right.
pull them back down, and then pull down her Murphy bed, and like,
Right. Exactly. Yeah, I see that all the time. Whenever people ask me about like self-tape advice, I always like I give advice based on like how I record my self-tapes, but I always forget like, oh, I have a separate room that I just dedicate to it. I never have to worry about it. You know, I leave my lights up all the time, and then people are like, I have one room that is my bedroom and my living room and everything, and like I don't have that. So yeah, it is great to be able to have all of that here and to be able to pursue an acting career at the same time. So that's awesome. So now I guess we're gonna transition this whole interview about what it's like
oops.
in Atlanta now. So that's great though. Did you so since you're coming from LA, did you look into potentially getting repped in Atlanta first when you were deciding to make the move?
Um, no, I didn't, only because I actually wasn't worried that I was gonna not have reps, because I have a manager, and my manager has people that are in Atlanta,
Oh, awesome.
like that have, she reps them because the agent is in Atlanta, and she reps them from LA.
Awesome.
And so I knew that if it came down to it, if I did lose my agents, she would be able to find me one.
Awesome.
And then I wouldn't have to like send out submissions or anything, that she would actually make the call for me.
That's great. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's another great thing about and a difference also about LA and probably New York too, the bigger markets, because managers are much more common in the big markets. They're not as common in Atlanta. There's like maybe two or three managers or slash management companies that are based in Atlanta or in the Southeast in general. But what I see more common in terms of actors here is as they grow their careers, it's more common for them to then pursue management on one of the coasts rather than somebody locally. So,
That
yeah,
makes sense.
yeah, and it's interesting because that is part of I think a relationship with a manager is that they help you find agents. You know, if you're seeking representation. Whereas that doesn't really happen here because people don't tend to get managers first, and so it is kind of actors kind of have to do it themselves in terms of finding their representation.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, and is it still referral based mostly, or can you submit to just like for the People Store, for example? Like I always hear the People Store, get the People Store.
Mm-hmm.
Like, is that referral only, or?
Some of them are, and some of them will say they are, but a lot of them they'll still submit. Like my agent Houghton, who is one of the bigger agencies here in Atlanta. They still take submissions. Although they're a little bit old school, they ask for mail-in, like physical headshots rather than an electronic submission. But yeah, I feel like the majority of the agents here are you can still direct submit yourself, but as we know, like a referral is always better. So I think some of them that do say like referral only, um, there's probably maybe two or three in Atlanta that are like that. What was it the first thing that kind of sparked your interest? Because you came out here to check out Atlanta prior to hearing anything about this potential role, right? So
Yeah.
what was it that sparked your interest to come check it out and think about moving here?
Um, just when my kids were babies, it was fine. But then like we had like such a small yard that we made. We like put fake grass down and like
Mm,
built them a little yard, and it was like 12 by 4 feet. And as they were getting older, they just get messier and they want to go out and do
yeah.
adventures. And like, and then I had a friend who posted on Facebook. She's like, my house in Atlanta. And it was like huge. I was like, what the heck? She came from a 2-bedroom in Los Feliz, which is like a swanky area. And it was like, it looked like the house from Home Alone. And I was like,
Yeah.
I go, can I come visit? Like, So I came over and I visited, and I just kind of drove through neighborhoods, and I was like, I didn't realize that Georgia was so pretty, because I'm coming from Texas and everything's flat. And so and it's green, it's just flat, and it's
Yeah.
just kind of boring. Some of the draw for LA, which I liked over New York, was because there was so much nature, and you have the beach, and you can go snowboarding, and you can go hiking, and then you can go to the beach all in the same day. Like, you can do that. And this gave the vibe of Oregon without all the gloominess.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean?
We do
And then
get
the
some
hills,
sunshine
it's
here,
like,
yeah.
yeah, like at least when it's freezing cold out, it's still, the sun is shining.
Right.
You're like, so it was just, I kind of just fell in love with Georgia, and I had never even been to Georgia. She just posted this
Awesome
thing. So
yeah.
and it's nice.
And there happens to be a big film and television production industry here, and it's just
Exactly.
yeah, it works out. You've been here 3 weeks now.
3 weeks.
What has anything surprised you? Is there or is there anything that that you felt so far that you've liked in this short amount of time that you've been here? I know you're probably just
Yes.
been spending the time unpacking.
Yes. I'm in Alpharetta, and I fell in love with Alpharetta because of the trees, because it is very suburban, but there's a place like the Grove, which is in LA. It's like the Avalon, right?
Yeah,
And then
I've been to the Grove. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then you have downtown Alpharetta, which is like super cute. It's like
Beautiful.
this quaint little town that looks like it should be in Connecticut.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
And you're just and I think that for me, the thing that I love about it is the vibration. I know that sounds like real whatever, but the vibration here is just very calm. It's very soothing.
Yeah.
The trees, being in nature. Like, I didn't even know I was a nature person like that. But I look out my window and I feel like I'm in a tree house because the trees are so tall. And I have this, like, I just want to write. I want to do stuff. It inspires me to create more here. And I'm not worrying about like stuff that could happen through my street or, I also lived really close to the airport. So there was always like a helicopter flying over. There's like spotlights going on the street trying to find people. And you're just like, am I in a crime movie? Like, that's how it felt. And you know what? If it was just me and my husband, we'd probably be all up in the city. But now there's a different dynamic.
Trying to get under the helicopter searchlights to be like, look at me.
No, it's serious. It's like that. I'm not kidding. It's like that. It's just like, that's where all the helicopters land. Yeah. But it was nice being really close to the airport. Just pick up my mom 5 minutes and she's there.
Yeah, now you're in Alpharetta. That's pretty far from the Atlanta airport.
Yes. And I have not gone to a single restaurant yet where I've hated the food. And there's a place called Local Expedition Wood Fire Grill. Mm-hmm. It's like the equivalent of Tender Greens, but like on like a whole nother level. Mm-hmm. It's so good. And I'm just like, the food is really good. And I'm also from the South. I'm actually from New Orleans. So like, I love beignets and Cajun food. And I mean, I can just break my diet for those beignets.
Well, I don't think the seafood here compares to New Orleans, though. I've been to New Orleans and had the seafood.
I haven't had seafood yet from here.
I love the food in New Orleans, for sure. Did you feel like, earlier you had mentioned when you had moved to LA from New York that people were telling you, like, what are you doing? You don't know anybody there. You're starting all over and all that type of stuff. Did you have any of those feelings coming to Atlanta from LA?
No, I was excited. I was so excited. I was excited because I knew the home we were going to come into. I knew that I'm going to have an entire unfinished basement that I can make whatever I want it to be. It's my studio. I knew that my kids were going to have a huge backyard, that we can go kayaking when the summer hits, that they can go play tennis. Like, that's all like included in my home. And so it was very exciting. Whereas like coming from New York to LA, it was definitely times where I would drive and I'd be like, wow, LA is so beautiful. And there was a lot of charm when you're single and you move to LA. There's a lot of charm. But the first 3 years of living in LA was probably my darkest period of my life. Like, it was just so lonely and so like navigating. And I think that that's the reason why I do this YouTube channel, is because I want to help people who are moving to LA actually direct them to what they should be doing. Because I was definitely one of those people that like fell for scams. Like, I was just so naive because I wanted to get where I needed to go. Like, I would go to all those like parties with celebrities in it, but they never really, the networking, it wasn't really networking. It didn't get me anywhere. So I want to show people the proper kind of networking. And
Right.
yeah.
That's great. I mean, I'm glad that you had that excitement coming to Atlanta, for sure. And you back up what I said earlier about coming here and deciding where you live based on like your lifestyle rather than like thinking only about the acting part of it. So that's great. And I'm glad you mentioned your YouTube channel, because now let's kind of pivot into it, because I have some questions about you, or for you about your YouTube channel. So first of all, what made you decide to start it? I know you started it. What is it now? 6 or 8 months ago?
Yeah. So I started, I think, in July or June. I just had this like aha moment, like, especially because my high school, they were really known for music, and it broke my heart that they couldn't perform like their last year, like their showcase. And same with New York, like all the
Right.
people that were
Right.
sitting there, and actually tears me up to think about it, that like you finish your college degree. And I even had a cousin who is, finishing up her dance school. And what is an actor, and what breathes life into an actor is to being able to perform, and you can't perform. And I guess me starting my YouTube channel was kind of like my personal diary, like of how I was feeling. But then also, like, there must be other people that are feeling this way too. Like I think my first video was a live Zoom audition. And I'm like, I had a friend who's like not a tech person at all. So I'm sure that the audition isn't the thing that's scary. It is the fact that they're going to have to load up a Zoom. They're going to have to get lighting. They're going to have to edit their videos, like all this stuff like that. Like, that is scary for someone who's not a millennial or younger.
100%.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that was my first video, and it like took off, and I was like, let me kind of keep going on this. And then there was all these other topics, and then people would ask questions, and I'm like, oh, maybe I'll just do a video on it. And now it just started receiving so well, and I have fun doing it.
Yeah.
And I actually started reading a book called How to Get a Billion Views. Oh, I should get the right one. I'll make sure to give you the right one.
Okay.
And there was a question in there that asked, what is your passion? What's something that you could do, like if you could do for free? And I was like, I like helping people. Like, that's something I could do all day long, is help people. And that's why he was like, that's what your YouTube channel should be. I'm like, well, what am I a pro on? Well, I've been acting for 20 years. Like, I'm sure that there's people out there who just don't know what the first step is, like I did, and like spending all this money for nothing. And I actually watched your video on moving to Atlanta, and you were so thorough in everything that you said that it also took away the anxiety of wanting to move to Atlanta. And I think that that's really important for when you have a YouTube channel, is that's what you're doing. You're taking the anxiety away from people by answering questions that either they didn't know they had, or they did have, but they were too afraid to ask.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I love that answer.
Yeah.
And I'm super happy that my video was able to help you too. One thing that I've wondered, and I don't see too many other channels like ours that are actors talking about acting, like about the acting career. And I've always wondered, like, because it always felt like YouTube was a perfect like medium for actors to get a little bit of their, another creative outlet right when they're not working. I just there are maybe a handful of others that I've seen on YouTube. I know there are some agents and casting directors and managers that have YouTube channels, but I thought like YouTube would be full of actors talking about this stuff, and there just
Right?
aren't that many.
I have a theory.
Yeah.
I have a theory that some people, and I used to be one of them, especially when I was younger, was that if I give away all my secrets and then you win before me,
Yeah.
that's now good, right?
Yeah.
So I feel like there's this idea that if you tell other people your successful actions, that they could possibly just make it before you. Now that I've been in LA for 10 years, I have plenty of friends that have now made it before me. And it is what it is. Sometimes it's just not your time.
Yeah.
I mean, it took this long for me to get something. And the funniest part about it is this audition that I did, it was a self-tape. And I was like, who are they? Is anyone even going to see this? I don't know.
Right.
But it was one of my very first self-tapes. I never really got much self-tapes before the pandemic. So this was one that was before the pandemic. And I was like, all right, well, I'm going to do this self-tape. I'm going to do it good. And I felt so good about this self-tape. And I was kind of bummed that I hadn't heard anything. And it took 8 months before they reached out. Like, it was crazy. And then so I was like, wait, what audition is this?
Right.
Like, oh, remember this one? And I'm like,
right.
What? I was like,
yeah.
Crazy. Oh my gosh, I totally lost my train of thought. Okay. So, but I feel, so you helping another person, or like, it's not going, there's going to be things that are going to be for you that are not for them, and vice versa. And it's like, okay, like if, for example, let's say your channel and my channel, and I'm like, oh, I'm not going to subscribe to Kurt because he's my direct competition, right?
Right.
But at the same time, that makes zero sense, because the same person who's probably watching my show is also watching your show. That doesn't take away from the show. Like, TV has many different shows. You watch more than one television show. So why wouldn't you want to watch more than one YouTube show? I mean, even when I'm buying something, I watch more than one video on YouTube, probably about 15, probably more than I need to. And then finally one person says something that's like, there, that's what I needed to know. Okay, buying it, right?
I'm 100% the same way. I'm the guy that reads like every review on Amazon before I decide that I want to buy something.
Yeah.
Yeah, that I 100% agree with that. And I think there's also the part of it where when you are helping someone out and then they come back and they tell you like something that, you know, they found some success, it's super rewarding. And sometimes
It's so rewarding.
Yeah, and you don't even realize sometimes like what that feeling is like until it happened. Like, I had someone reach out to me a while back that said, hey, I watched some of your videos and I took your advice and I did this and that, and I got an agent. I was like, that's amazing. And then this other person's like, I blah blah blah, and I booked a national commercial. And I was like, that blew my mind. I was like, I've never even booked a national commercial. But it's exactly like what you were saying. Like, at that moment, I could have felt like the jealousy of it, but it wasn't. That feeling didn't come. It was definitely that was so rewarding to hear that someone took my advice and then they found so much success from that.
Agreed.
Yeah. Okay, this is great. So much amazing information that you shared. Thank you for sharing your story, going from New York to LA and then now here to Atlanta. And so before we end, where else can people find you other than on your YouTube channel, which is just your name, Kristin Henry
Yes.
King. But other than your YouTube channel, where else can they find you?
I'm also pretty active on my Instagram. So if you want to find me there, my Instagram is my name, Kristin Henry King. So there you go.
Fantastic. Awesome. Okay. Well, Kristin, break all of the legs here in Atlanta, and best of luck to you for your YouTube channel as well. And I'm putting this out into the universe now, and I hope to see you on set here in Atlanta soon.
Yes, it would be great to work with you. Thank you so
awesome.
much.
Thanks, Kristin.
Thank you.
Bye.
Okay, bye.
Hey, thanks for watching all the way to the end. I want to thank Kristin one more time for joining me. Welcome to Atlanta, Kristin. I wish you nothing but success here. If you want to learn more about the acting career from Kristin, go to her YouTube channel and subscribe. If you have any questions, leave them down in the comments below. If you like the video, please give it a thumbs up. And until next time, keep practicing, keep learning, and I hope to see you on set one day.